Hey everybody, welcome into Ohio Stadium. This was the spring scrimmage, spring game. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was the last day of spring camp, and the Buckeyes put on a pretty good show for, I don't know, 40 to 50,000 people.
Official attendance at 60,007.
I don't know if that's accurate, but let's go with it. This
is a pretty good crowd.
Rapid Reaction. It is brought to you by Byers Auto, Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. Ohio State won. I don't know what else to say about it, but guys on both sides really flashed. I think that's more than anything you wanted to see what those young guys looked like in front of any crowd in some scenarios that put them live tackling, some deep throws if you're talking about the corners and wide receivers, safeties. I'll just start with my guy, that Kai Stokes, before Berm jumps in and claims credit for that.
Yeah.
I think that I'm buying stock in Kai Stokes. So, Berm, I know that you have other people that you want to start with, and I know I always let you begin, but I just had to say, I think Kai Stokes was probably the biggest winner out here today.
Stole it from all three of us.
I mean, Kai Stokes is one of those players that we've been hearing about. I mean, he was when this class signed in December, I wrote that he was the biggest steal in this class because if you just look at him, he looks like exactly what you want a high-level safety to look like. He runs well, he's physical, and he's getting an opportunity to get a lot of reps right now that he may not otherwise get because Josh Proctor, Blake Ransom, and some other guys are being held back. And I think if fans are watching this game at home today, the thing you look at and say, this doesn't look like, I don't know a lot of these guys, but I mean, that's how deep this team is. They're that talented that a good portion of presumptive starters didn't have to play today. And you start to see some real, momentum for players like Kai Stokes especially, is going to make it really difficult for him to not be on the field come fall.
Yeah, and then you go from safety to corner, I'll bring up Jordan Hancock. I thought Jordan Hancock looked really good out there today. And it's just a continuation of what we've heard throughout the spring, that he is really coming on, taking that second-year leap. He's going to get one of my Buckeye leaps. He's going to go on Lettermen Row here in a little bit. I think it's kind of snapped for him. The first year, I think he looked a little small. He had to put on a little bit of muscle. I think he had to get a hang of the program, and special teams helped that a lot. But to take the second-year leap and to put it on display in front of supposedly 60,000 people, that's a big step in and of itself.
Paid attendance.
Yeah. Those 14 practices are big, but to do it in front of a crowd is another thing. He was breaking up passes. He had a couple tackles in run support, which I think is probably the most impressive thing he did today, come up and fill the gap on the outside for a couple tackles. He and Kai Stokes, if that's your number 2 safety and your number 2 corner, your number 3 second string corner, that's an impressive couple guys to have there.
I like Devin Pryor just like I thought I would going into this day, but I'm going to stay on the defensive side. I think there's a changing of the guard. Maybe it's already happened. And as Jim Knowles said, he doesn't. You can talk about starters all you want. He's not going to be talking about starters, but I think there's been a changing of the guard at defensive end because I really think Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are their most consistent, effective defensive ends. It's going to be interesting to see how they play that coming out of this, but there's no denying Jack Sawyer has made in my opinion, a major leap, especially compared to a year ago, but even from the end of the season. So I'm interested to see how they play that.
Well, I think they're going to have to make a decision that Larry Johnson probably doesn't want to, and I know that that's been ongoing throughout spring, but to start it out there, you're always going to defer. They always have in the past to the veterans, and you saw Zach Harrison and Javonte Jean-Baptiste out there, Jerron Cage and Teron Vincent. Those aren't the 4 best defensive linemen for Ohio State, and I don't think that you can act that way or let them have ceremonial starts when you get into meaningful games. You open in this building against Notre Dame, okay? That's a real one. And if you can't watch and not think that JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer are game changers for Ohio State. Yeah, they got some matchups. I'm sorry, Grant Toutant. That was not fair what happened to you today. But even if they were out there, you saw JT going against Paris Johnson and winning a lot of matchups out there, getting physical, drawing a holding penalty, getting to the quarterback. I know they didn't take him to the ground. I know that it all wasn't completely live at every time for these defensive ends, but those two on the edge are different. And then you go inside with Tyleik Williams and Mike Hall and Ty Hamilton. These guys, the second unit was better than the first, and you can't have that be the order. I don't think it's maybe we shouldn't be having this conversation just because it's April, but I think that as you're saying, Tim, with the changing of the guard, it's very clear who needs to be carrying the weight for the rushmen, and it's this next wave that's coming.
But the whole point is to just get as many guys ready to go as possible, and especially today what we saw with the offensive line is after that first 5, there is a lot of question marks because there are a lot of guys that are not playing yet, and that are going to be counted on come summertime to be healthy and ready to go. So it's hard to give a full picture of exactly what we see out of the defensive line. It is not a surprise to anyone that Jack Sawyer and JT who are two of the top 3 ranked players in the class of 2021, like, they're really good. I mean, they're going to be good. That's why you recruit players like that. That's why you recruit guys like Kevin Pryor, who's the number 5 ranked running back in the country in the class of 2021, and it was sort of an afterthought because Travion Henderson had such a great year last year. He said on the very first practice report of the spring, there was a guy that looked different, and it was Evan Pryor. And I'm telling you, you can see it. People who didn't get a chance to see practices, if you watch today's spring game, that burst is a very unique, like Chris Rainey at Florida type of boom. Like he gets out of the gate very
Ryan
fast.
He's now using my word wiggle when it comes to describing some guys.
Well, he's going to have to learn how to wiggle himself through some tackles.
Yeah.
That's the difference. I mean, in Ohio State's,
He's got wiggle.
You're going to have to get hit and learn how to take a tackle. But you can see the difference. Evan Pryor brings an element to this offense that I don't think coming into the spring people really thought like that was a player that could fill a real part.
Yeah, I think, and that still may be like, to skip ahead to one more spring, that may be the year 3 evolution is the running through tackles. I think right now, if you just commit to say, you know that Travion Henderson is your bell cow running back and that Mayan Williams can give you a lot as a compliment, and then you just say, this is a Curtis Samuel hybrid role. We don't need to, we'll not use another Florida reference to make it 2 already in the show, but if you say this is what you're going to do and there's going to be a package of plays, whether they're jet sweeps, whether that's lining up in the backfield, whether that's being a target out of the backfield, Evan Pryor must be used.
Yes. I saw one play today that makes me think they already know Evan Pryor needs to be used. It was the outside zone where you give him the ball and he goes completely to the sideline until he finds a cut. They didn't use that last year. I was wondering why all year, but Travion Henderson is not the kind of running back you use that for. He's an all-around back. Mayan Williams is not the kind of back you use that for. Master Teague definitely wasn't. Evan Pryor is. They used it with Curtis Samuel. It was very effective. He scored that touchdown against Michigan that way. He was very good with it. Evan Pryor has the ability to put that play in itself back into the offense. And you don't want to be too predictable. When you have a guy that talented with that kind of wiggle and that kind of burst, that play can become another central part of your offense when he's on the field.
With that said, order every time somebody says wiggle?
Yeah, I think I should. If they could put the waggle in with his wiggle, I mean, wow, you'd have a play there. But I digress.
Sure.
There's been a lot of conjecture about their tight end situation. I like Joe Royer. Just the few times I've gotten to see him, like in that student appreciation day scrimmage, and even today, I really like Joe Royer. And I like Cade Stover. The zero to him, watching him block some today. He brings physicality there, just like they thought he would when he switched back from defense to offense. I kind of like that situation. I think Benny Christian's got a big time upside. Watching him just run and stuff, and I'm just giving you some takeaways that I got from getting to watch today. But going back to what you guys are talking about, it's interesting what they've got at running back, because all 3 of those guys could help anybody in the country, any team you name. And wow, how they're going to use that, it remains to be seen.
I was really impressed with the sort of adjustment and the tough catch from Joe Royer on that touchdown early on. I just think last year when we were talking about Jeremy Ruckert and Kevin Wilson was saying he needed to be at that competitive excellence, we saw some of those tough catches not be made at tight end a year ago, and this is not the same. I'm not going to say that a scrimmage situation in a less than full capacity horseshoe is comparable to what's going to happen against Notre Dame, but I think Joe Royer is zipping through some of that learning curve and really coming on, and then if you partner that with the inline blocking, Cade Stover, even during the third period, is going to try and take somebody's head off. There's no such thing as a thud period for Cade Stover. So you have that coming along. G. Scott got the football a number of times today. Had a little bit of a hiccup there in the middle of camp, but he was doing the things that Ohio State wants to see from that flex out tight end.
I didn't mean to leave him out of the conversation.
No, I get it. And
4 tight ends caught passes today, and the guy that started the game at tight end, Cade Stover, is the only one that did it.
Yeah, but I think that part, because I think there's going to be a lot of excitement about what G. Scott did today, and boy, the light is coming on as a receiver. I want to temper it just a little bit, because the hurdle has always been, we've talked to Kevin Wilson about this a number of times, will he block? Can he block? Is he going to take the next step physically? You missed that a number of times today. I was watching closely just to see what that next step was going to be. he's a tantalizing prospect, and you see that when the football's in his hands. But he's still not going to be out there a ton until he gets that other part down. I feel like maybe I'm nitpicking a lot more today from the spring scrimmage than I normally would be, but I just think there are a few things about today that it was much more of an extended look at what this team looks like than we would normally get.
I mean, it was good on good a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. I mean, it was better to me than a spring game just to watch how guys were playing against each other. And like Jim Knowles said, those two young cornerbacks came up and they were throwing punches, so to speak. I mean, they were getting after it. I mean,
it wasn't just them. I mean, it was Ryan Turner in there. It was Jair Brown out there too. I mean, Jair Brown made 3 or 4 pass breakups. I mean, just guys who were just thrown into the mix. And I think as I said it a little bit earlier, but this is just about building towards the spring. I think that I'm reluctant to get too far ahead of it, but I think Ohio State could have played a lot more guys today, and I think they're just saying we have a chance here this season to do something really, really special. And I think that they're just saying let's just not rush into anything. Let's not, spew it all at once.
Hey, I'm gonna write about this. But
you don't want to see all of it, right?
Don't you feel that Ryan Day feels really good about his defense? I mean, for what he's seen,
because you can
clearly they've got places to go.
You can have this team out here and not have to play guys like Court Williams. Cam Brown, Court Williams didn't play. Zach Harrison didn't play. Tyler Friday didn't play. Javonte Johnson. There's a lot of guys that are. Steel Chambers played minimally. Tommy Eichenberg played. Those are the starters at linebacker. They barely played.
I thought Eichenberg looked good when he was in
I mean, I was on the sideline with Bobby Carpenter when Tommy Eichenberg decided this was now a hitting scrimmage.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just apropos, like that's what you expected. It was thud, 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 and then Tommy Eichenberg was like, nope, no more, I'm hitting. And
second half of the Rose Bowl.
and it's an attitude that I think the Buckeyes really are have going into this season. Like, there's something brewing with this team, and I think you don't want to get too big about it, but at the same time, you need to be careful how you approach it.
A couple other guys before I finish up that I wanted to mention. Like, we're going to give the second team offensive line a lot of grief over the next couple months. They overall it didn't look good.
We don't know who the second team offensive line is.
Yeah. But I thought on the interior, I did think Jacob James looks like he's a guy who's taken another step forward. I think he is a good piece of a second string offensive line that can be called upon, when he needs to be and be serviceable. And I think Enoch Vamahi has taken another step. The tackles on the second team, we don't need to talk about that right now.
I think the reason that Donovan Jackson is getting so much work this spring at tackle is not because he has otherworldly talent. That's part of it. But he is best at guard, but they know if they need another tackle that he's going to have to be it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. The tackles are going to take a lot of heat, but the interior of that second unit, I didn't think played as poorly as we're probably going to project on that offensive line. I want that to be known because, for as bad as the tackles were,
they need Josh Fryer back.
They do need Josh Fryer back, and that's a huge concern going in. And I also think, we're gushing about some of these safeties, but it does look like they need those guys to get healthy. I think the depth there, you want to be able to rely on Kai Stokes, but that's a true freshman. And so
the top 3 safeties weren't playing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Jim Knowles said we need to get, safeties are concerned because of the depth. Okay, you're going to get healthier, but also heading into the summer, the spring, they didn't get a lot of those reps that you would like for guys who are in a new defense to get.
I was watching Proctor, when he was in there. I thought Proctor was moving extremely well. But what I like about Kai Stokes, he's almost like a heat-seeking missile. I mean, I was very impressed by the way he turned it on, going to the ball, going to the scene of the crime, so to speak. Those are things you can't really, you can coach it to a certain extent, but he's naturally moving to the target area, and I think that bodes well for him. I think a guy can play as a freshman if he can play like that with that kind of velocity.
I think we could break this down for probably another 3 or 4 hours. There was so much to learn about Ohio State on Saturday in the Horseshoe, but we'll save some of it. It's a long offseason ahead.
Don't we have more to talk about?
Yeah, do you want to talk about more?
I think we should talk about Cam Martinez and Caden Curry, don't you?
I think they make it.
I gave you multiple opportunities, and you said you didn't want to spray it all over.
People think that the big 3 is Chris Bosh, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade. No, it's not. It's Caden Curry, Cam Martinez, and Kai Stokes.
How did you even piece together these 3 when they weren't even all in the same class?
Not like Caden Curry. Watched him today. He zeroed in on him. They had him dropping a lot, though. I don't think that's his forte.
I think he's going to be a pretty good
He
Jack
is going to
Leo
be the next
hybrid.
guy.
He's going to be a handful coming off the edge.
Over the last 20 years, we've had this run of defensive ends at Ohio State where you go, do they ever call holding when that guy's on the field? and he's probably going to be the next one of that group, because the tackles today, no matter which ones they were going, had a fistful of Caden Curry shirts most of the day, and that's what he does. That's why, you know, coming into this spring, I was like, people need to not sleep on this guy, because he is a football player.
Not as much talent there, but there's a lot of guys that return on the defensive line, and a true freshman came in and led the team in sacks.
Yep.
So there's a lot of attention that's going to have to be paid on JT Tuimoloau and Zach Harrison and Javante Jean-Baptiste and Jack Sawyer, defensive end. If Caden Curry gets a chance to get in there opposite side of those guys, it's not going to be easy to block him.
He's not going to be a breather for the other offense, which is get some games.
I told you that we could talk about this for another couple hours, but we're not going to.
I don't know where that came from today, but you're welcome.
That's
America.
multiple. Let's make sure we get a lot of screenshots and GIFs of that, please. And then send them to us at Lettermen Row. This has been Rapid Reaction. It's the spring game edition. It's brought to you by Byers Auto. A lot more coverage coming, as always, as we wrap up spring. Get ready, unfortunately, for the couple months ahead of the off season. And then August and training camp rolls around. Can't wait for that already. He's Spencer Holbrook. That's Tim May. He's Jeremy Birmingham. And I'm Austin Ward.
Yes.
Stay with us for full coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes at LettermenRow.com.